I think that there's no coincidence that these two are emerging at the same time. I think the more that we lean into tech and what can be automated and optimized, the more we have this desire to return to our humanity and really what can't be stripped from us at the end of the day, which is our ability to create, to bring things into the world, for things to be imperfect. Welcome to the Trades Show. I'm your host, Briana Ottoboni. This season, we're on location with artisans in San Francisco. In the epicenter of AI, speed, and innovation, we're exploring a return to slow, a return to craftsmanship, a return to what makes us human, our ability to make with our hands and our hearts, not just our heads. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to season 2 of the Trade Show. This is the first episode of season 2 officially, unless you watched the trailer, which you should because it's fun and there's a lot of fun things coming down the pipeline this season. But I wanted to kick off the season and just give you a little introduction into me, who I am, reintroduction if you already know me, and bring us back a little bit into why I started the trade show, where the idea came from, why now feels like the perfect time for all of this to be happening, and tell you a little bit about what's to come. So I'll start with my background. I am living in San Francisco. I grew up in the Bay Area, surrounded by Silicon Valley, and my foray into the artisan trade started a few years ago. I brought a pair of shoes to a shoe cobbler, and I remember just being astonished, I feel like is the only word that can really capture it, at the results. I brought in a beat up pair of old secondhand leather loafers, and they were returned to me in just pristine, beautiful condition, more than I could have ever dreamed. And it was the first time that I really looked at shoe cobbling and understood it to be such a craft. And I kind of fell in love with it in that moment and fell in love with the craftsmanship, the artistry that you could see in the finished product. My career started in the sustainable fashion world, so coming back full circle to repair and products that have longevity and the people that are actually helping maintain their longevity really feels special and very kismet, and also totally makes sense. And I remember also realizing that the person who cobbled my shoes was a man in his probably late 60s, early 70s. And I just remember wondering, the intrusive thought really that I kept having after that was like, what happens to shoe cobbling when the current generation is no longer with us, when they've passed on their businesses, who's taking over these crafts? And the fear really for me was no one. And I think that's changing. I think we're seeing a little bit more of that, but still compared to traditional jobs, people who are entering the artisan trade specifically is a much smaller percentage. But they are these threads of culture and art that are so beautiful and feel so important to me that we preserve. So to kind of ground us in how I see the artisan trades and what I'm talking about when I'm saying that is I really see them as like the center of the Venn diagram between fine arts and the skilled trades. So if fine arts, you can think of painting, sculpture, and then the skilled trades, you can think of plumbers, mechanics, electricians, and artisan trades kind of sit at that perfect intersection. So they require the same design and aesthetic rigor as the fine arts and creativity, but there's also this technique, process, tradition, it's really skill that you get in the skilled trades. Those two together are really what the artisan trades are. It's like form and function. So that's kind of how I got kicked off into the world of the artisan trades. And then about a year later, I was up in Portland visiting a dear friend. I was working remote at the time and had a pretty flexible job, and I found a shoe cobbler up there, and I just asked if I could help and learn and just sort of follow him around for a couple weeks. And it was so fun. I loved getting to see, one, the process, but also to go from being at a desk job to actually working with your hands and seeing all of these physical goods and the transformation of them. Like there's so much almost instant gratification that you get when you resole a shoe and you have in front of you a few days later the finished product. In this case, not necessarily creating something from scratch, but really transforming things. There's so many different parts of the shoe cobbling world that still enamor me, but I was really excited about it, and at the time didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I got laid off the beginning of the following year, and I remember I was working with a coach at the time, and I put artisan trades on my vision board. And she told me how much I lit up when I talked about it, but at the time I really had no idea what I wanted it to be. I just knew that I kind of wanted to be in that space. I didn't really feel ready to start a company, to be a business owner. It was just something that I was really passionate about. And I was consulting for early stage startups at the time, and I had 3 clients that all ran out of money at the same time. And I just had this newfound window of creative spaciousness, really. And in that time is when the idea for the trade show came in. And I remember I had the idea for a podcast first, and I just kind of kept getting that message of like, okay, I could create a podcast, but I didn't know what the topic would be. I didn't know what I would talk about. And then more and more, all of the pieces of the vision felt like they landed in my brain. One specifically, I remember driving and being like, I can see it. Like there's me and an artisan in a workshop, like the backdrop of their workshop, having a conversation. And I just knew that I wanted it to feel really high quality and feel really like a show. Even now, sometimes I'm reticent to use the word podcast. It's really what it is, but there's so much production value that goes into it and that I want to be construed on the other side. So show always feels like a more apt name for me. And that's really where it started. And I just kept getting little glimmers of that this was the right path. I, at the time, was consulting, and I remember emailing a lot of artisans and actually asking if they needed business support, and I thought that's a way that I could support them. And so many didn't reply. I remember one man who was retired. He was a retired woodworker, and he replied and he was like, "This is really kind of you, but like I'm retired and I really don't need this." I was like, okay, that's a signal from the universe. But when I had the trade show idea, there were actually a lot of crossover between those people that I had initially emailed and people that I reached out to again with this new idea. And I was like, I want to create this show. I want you to be on it. And immediately people responded. And people who didn't respond to my initial emails were an immediate yes. And that to me felt like just a signal to keep going. So there's 10 episodes out right now. So if you haven't listened, you can absolutely go watch and listen to those ones as you're gearing up for season 2. And I'm really considering that like my pilot season. It was really my first foray into the production world. I'm truly a one-woman show over here for now. It was just so much of a skill building season. It felt like getting comfortable with everything, figuring out what I wanted it to be, figuring it out if I even liked doing it. Spoiler, I do. And that really brings us here-ish. So my vision for season 2 and beyond is that all of the next seasons will be set in a specific city, and that gives us the opportunity to really use culture and place as kind of an anchor, almost like a backdrop of what is the relationship between artisanship, between craftsmanship, and people who are in these fields and the culture that surrounds them. So I'm really excited to start in San Francisco. I mentioned that I consult for really early stage tech startups. I grew up in Silicon Valley. I grew up around like the golden age of tech, it feels like. And weirdly, it feels like we're returning to that in a new way. So many companies left San Francisco and now are returning to be part of the AI surge. And San Francisco really feels like the AI epicenter of the world. And when you think of tech and when you think of AI and then you think of hands-on crafts, I think there's this inclination to think of them as almost opposites, but I think the relationship between them isn't mutually exclusive. You don't need to be on one end or the other. I think that the reason that we're seeing both of these sort of emerge at the same time, there's viral videos on like grandma hobbies and this return to analog at the same time as if you're in San Francisco and you're driving and you see billboards in what feels like a completely different language often, or like billboards for artisan employees that are actually AI employees. I think that there's no coincidence that these two are emerging at the same time. I think the more that we lean into tech and what can be automated and optimized, the more we have this desire to return to our humanity and really what can't be stripped from us at the end of the day, which is our ability to create, to bring things into the world, for things to be imperfect. When you think about artisan craft, you're not looking for something that looks like it's from IKEA. You're looking for something that has character, that has charm and beauty and life and a story in it. And that's something that is so innately human. And I actually think that the more that we get into AI and the more advanced we get with technology, the more and more we will continue to want to return to these trades and continue to value them. And so that's a really fun place to start for the trade show season 2. You're going to meet artisans that are in the culinary arts that are, I don't want to give too much away, but artisans who are working and living in a city where the backdrop truly is the AI epicenter of the world. And I really want to explore that this season. The trade show, the goal always and forever will be to highlight the stories of artisans who are making a living doing this. Highlight artisans who have showcased craftsmanship as a viable alternative pathway. I say alternative and almost kind of laugh because if you think about the way societies used to run, I think of like old Victorian societies or like gold rush towns where artisans were the pillars of those societies, the storefronts of tailors, shoe cobblers, carpenters. Those people were truly the fabric of those societies. They have post-industrial revolution really become these alternative pathways. 9 to 5 is what you're familiar with, and all of these artisan pathways are taking a different route. And I want to explore and really highlight artisanship as a viable pathway. If that is something that calls to you, I want you to be able to find people who are on here who can inspire you to pursue it. Something that I've loved about interviewing is also that there are so many different paths that people take to get here. When you talk to someone who's in a 9 to 5, there's pretty cut and dry pathways towards success. In the artisan trades, people start from all over the place. And that was such a common thread that was woven into the conversations from season 1 that I love to see. And the other common thread that I saw a lot of, which is also interesting with the AI backdrop, is that artisans, if you are making a living doing this, and if this is your life's work, you end up being a business person, whether you wanted to or not. And I think in that way, rather than business being a pathway on its own, it's a skill that can be applied to any of these pathways. And I have a business background, and business to me can also be an opportunity to create impact. There's such an opportunity for businesses to look really different. And I think so many artisan businesses really showcase that. You can take different paths. It can look different once you get there. It's so unique to you. And the artisan pathways really highlight that in a beautiful way. That's a little bit about why this feels really important now. And yeah, what you can expect. So season 2, again, is set in San Francisco. From here on out, you'll get episodes for season 2 every other Thursday. And you can expect a really beautiful and exciting mix of artisans. I'm so excited and always grateful to share their stories. If you have recommendations, if you have a city you want us to go to next, let me know, or artisans that you want me to feature. The trade show, I'm thinking about it as one branch of this ship ecosystem, and it's the one we'll focus the most on here. Another branch that I launched in the end of January and was working on at the end of last year is called the Corral. It's an artisan jobs board. It's another beautiful solution that explores that intersection between technology and craftsmanship. It uses AI, it uses these no-code tools and high-tech platforms to make artisans and opportunities more visible. And that is what I want to explore, is really like that tension of how can we use technology to not replace humanity, but bring us closer to it? How can it make artisanship more visible, viable, and more valued? Those are really the three pieces and the through line of my work. And again, the trade show and the Corral are the first two branches. There's another branch coming this summer that I'm so excited about that will feel really complementary to the trade show. And there's so many more branches coming too. We're building like the most beautiful tree that you could dream of. And I'm so excited that you're here. You can subscribe to the mailing list where I share monthly updates on anything that's going on in this ecosystem. Probably only get these solo episodes from me at the beginning of every season just to ground us in where we are, what we're doing, where we're going. And I'm so excited to have you here. You can follow the trade show on socials at pretty much everywhere, and follow the show on Spotify or YouTube, leave a review, rate the show. That really means a lot. And I'm so excited to have you here. I'm so excited for season 2, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, or review the show. You'll find everything we talked about, including links to today's guest, in the show notes. You can follow the show on socials, Trades Show, and if you have any guest suggestions, requests, or any questions, my contact information is in the show notes. Full episodes during the season are live every other Thursday on Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you listen to or watch your podcasts. Thank you for being here. See you next time.